Thank you, everyone, for joining. I am beyond jazzed to welcome this group of people here to our career coach panel for the Evans School. We're really excited about this. This is the first year that we are expanding our career panels to include alumni and prospective students. This is really big for us. Um, myself, and the student affairs team decided to make that decision because we know that there's a lot of people, not just students, who are facing a challenging time in this market, and we could all use a little help from the experts in the room. So in a second, we'll introduce those experts, but I want to start by introducing myself. I'm Justin Jacobs. I'm the Alumni and Community Engagement Manager here at the Evans School. I have the incredible pleasure of working with our incredible alumni at this school, and I'm so happy to welcome so many of you into this conversation. So today we're going to hear from our career coach experts and help get a little guidance on how we can navigate this world around us. And so I'm actually going to pass it over to our lovely career coaches to introduce themselves and present a little bit on a topic that they think is worthy of sharing.
Everyone. Nice to see you all. I love Zoom meetings. I'm on Zoom every day, all day. So, yeah, really comfortable in this space. And let me introduce myself. So, my name's Erin. I'm a career and a leadership coach, and I get to do the fun work every day of really helping ambitious professionals land ideal roles, help them make more money, and help them amplify their leadership, influence, and impact at work. I'm really excited to be here today, especially because I'm also an alumna of the Evans program. I graduated from the EMPA program back in 2013. And, since this is a career panel, I eat, drink, and breathe everything career development related and have for a very long time, including job search. And I think you all know, as you all know this, and Justin just also shared that this job market is tough. It's really tough. I've been doing this for a long time, and this is a tough year. So, what I would like to do is share a little bit briefly about how to be most competitive in today's market, because what the market requires today is a little bit different than maybe other markets require. So today I want to talk about the job market that we're currently in, what competitive candidates are doing differently, and to reach success, and then finally how to leverage AI to shortcut the process without sounding like a bot. So let's start with the job market we are in. You all know this, I'm assuming. We are in an employer's job market, not an employee's market. What does this mean? It means that there is higher competition per role, lots of competition. I'm talking to my hiring manager friends and my recruiter friends, and they're telling me that they're getting thousands of resumes for one job opening. So there's super high competition. There's more rounds of interviews. There's more scrutiny on alignment, ROI, and value that candidates need to articulate. Employers are just more selective in their hiring, and they're a little bit less risk tolerant to make, when making hiring decisions. And of course, there's a little bit of a slower timeline that we're seeing. There's a lot of wait and see and a lot of kicking the can down the road. In an employer's market, you could be casting out a wide net of resumes and get traction. We all have. I've gotten plenty of jobs by just like submitting cold resumes and then getting interviews back. But in an employer's market, that's really tough. And it's honestly like a confidence destroyer. This is what I'm seeing. What works now really is precision over volume. It's a quality game we're playing, not a quantity game. Okay, so with that in mind, this is kind of the environment we're operating in, right? So what are most competitive candidates doing differently? There's really three behaviors top candidates are consistently demonstrating. Number one, they know their value and they can articulate it fast. Hiring managers care about one thing. Well, they care about a lot of things, of course, but one thing they really care about is how will you solve my problems? How will you solve the problems that are keeping me up at night, that are making me lose sleep? Competitive candidates can communicate their value really quickly, like under 30 seconds, right? By clearly stating what they're known for. This is like your lane, your strengths, the impact you consistently deliver. These are the results you achieve. And three, why it matters now. This is why it's relevant to the role that you're really competing for. So when someone can articulate these three pieces rather quickly, you instantly become easier to champion, easier to remember, and you're more likely to move forward in the process. Second thing highly competitive candidates are doing right now is they're not waiting for jobs to drop on job boards. They're not waiting for job openings on job boards, but rather they're proactively creating visibility with the right people. So they're getting in front of the right people. You've all probably heard of the hidden job market, and I don't love that phrase and that term, but I am glad more and more people are talking about it because it is true in that a lot of jobs in the US market are filled through warm networks, through internal referrals, through shortlist candidates, through networking, not necessarily public postings. And even if jobs are posted publicly, then still a lot of hiring managers, because remember, they're a little bit more risk averse, they would rather go with somebody that has some credibility with them or has some trust with them already. So, competitive candidates, they're reaching out to decision makers before roles even exist. They're getting in front of them. They're targeting hiring managers, not just recruiters, right? They're getting in front of the decision makers of the problems that they can uniquely solve for with really good outreach and really good positioning around here's how I can solve your problems and here's why you can believe me because look, here's when I've done it in the past and then inviting them into a relationship. They're leading with value instead of leading with need, right? I see a lot of job seekers networking by way of saying like I would love to work with you. Will you hire me? Um, and this is all about you. But remember, you want to make it all about them. So lead with value that you can serve them. The third thing that competitive candidates are doing, their application materials, these are your sort of job search assets like your resume, your LinkedIn. They make you sound like a top performer, not like a job seeker. I always say to my clients, don't act like a job seekers because job seekers suck at getting jobs. Act like a problem solver. Act like a leader. So, what does this mean? It means focus your resume, of course, on results. I like to use the acronym RAS, results, actions, scale. What else does this mean? It means have a brand story or brand positioning that's cohesive across your resume, your LinkedIn, your networking, your interviews, all circling back to your value, the problems you solve, the results you deliver, and the people whom you do this for. You want your job search assets to showcase somebody who's a problem solver, not just someone who's looking for a job. The last thing I want to just share is how to leverage AI in the right way, because of course we all need to learn how to use AI. And I think actually if you're uncomfortable using AI, job search is a great way to start getting comfortable using AI in some smart ways. Using AI is where people either gain an advantage or they might shoot themselves in the foot. AI is not here to replace your judgment. It's not here to do all the work for you. It's here to do the heavy lifting so that you can move faster and with a little bit more agility than your competitors. And so here's how competitive job seekers are using AI today. Really, there's three ways. One is efficiency. AI is helping them be a more efficient job seeker through researching companies, extracting job description keywords, tailoring resumes to job descriptions that you're applying to, organizing your thoughts for networking, prepping for networking calls. What else? Synthesizing networking meetings with next steps and action plans, building outreach messaging. The list goes on and on. Okay, so it can really help you be more efficient. Number two, it will help you be more clear. AI can help you clarify your story and your messaging uh, in a way that's concise, in a way that highlights the most important parts of your story, in a way that translates your experience to their needs, to their hopes and dreams and problems, and can help you make your value a little bit more obvious. And lastly, I know I'm running over time here. Lastly, scale. AI can really help you scale your efforts. So when used well, AI, you can personalize, 10 networking messages in under an hour, or you can generate multiple tailored versions of your resume, or you can create, instant follow-up messages to, folks you're networking with, or you can prep. It's amazing for interview prep. You can prep for interview scenarios at a really high volume. In closing, to be competitive in this market, you don't need to out apply people. You need to out strategize them. So, to do that, four things. Number one, know the market you're in and the strategies and tactics that work for the market you're in. And remember, we're in an employer's market, not an employee market. Number two, articulate your value clearly. And if you don't know how to do this yet, or you haven't quite nailed this yet, do it in the car, do it with your family, do it with your friends, do it all over the place. Number three, build and implement really targeted and relationship-driven outreach with the people whose missions align with your mission. And then lastly, use AI smartly so that you can move faster and sort of show up stronger. I'll stop there. I'm happy, of course, to answer any questions or dive deeper during the Q&A.
I've got actually an impromptu job that I'm going to do. Folks, finish that last note. Write down that last scribble, capture that last piece of insight, and let's give it up for Erin. Pick a reaction, put something in the chat. Let's appreciate Erin for all that wisdom that was shared. You're going to get a really different flavor of ice cream with me. And so give yourself a moment to really absorb all that you learned. I love seeing that love for you, Erin. That's great. All right. So everyone, my name's Juan. I'm currently living in Walla Walla, Washington. I'm also an alum and had the opportunity to pursue my Evans degree while I was working full time at North Seattle Community College. So before coaching, most of us coaches have a BC, a before coaching story. My before coaching story, I've worked with college students everywhere from college access, helping folks get in, to supporting folks once they're there. So different persistence initiatives, different student life. So I've always worked with humans who have really ambitious goals. Who are trying to navigate the zigzag reality of life. I've done that for a long time. And so right now I'm working at the intersection of upskilling and career mobility with a company out of Denver called Guild. And I actually work in a really different coaching capacity than what we just heard, for example, how Erin is really expert in the tactical steps of ways that we think about markets and strategies that we deploy. We have a group of coaches at Guild who do that. My work and what I get to do with folks in Guild and for some clients outside really don't give advice. I really don't have information to share. I hold a lot of space and I ask questions. And so what you're going to get in these next couple minutes is just a way that I think about supporting humans in a time where, to Erin's point, and kind of what we all know going into this, it's a really unusual market to be in. And so I want to share maybe a little bit about what's about to happen, what you can expect from it. And then following me will be Ellen, and you're going to get some other information. I'm here for the inner journey. That's where I pay attention, and that's the space that I like to hold. One of the ways that I think about working with people in a time like this, and Erin, I'm going to use some of what you shared. It's going to help me lead into it. When When I heard Aaron say confidence destroyer, that's the space that I want to start with. When our confidence is feeling less than optimum, when we're really taking a hit, something that Aaron shared a little bit later is how do we articulate our value? How do we contend with what might be happening here or here so that we can show up in a way that when we do have those 30 seconds, it's coming from a place of poise, of steadiness, of our best and highest selves, right? And so one of the things that I want to start with is as we're going through any challenge, any unknown, can we be aware of the storylines that we start to see show up in our own minds? How are we making meaning of this experience that we're having? Can we start to connect with what those storylines are? Not from a place of judgment, if they don't feel supportive, but from a place of curiosity. Can we be in relationship with these storylines in a way that we can choose which ones are supporting us and which ones might actually be limiting us or holding us down? That's one of the things that I practice and work on with folks who are pursuing. It could be anything from career mobility to any other big goals, that they're pursuing. What that really speaks to is, can we be at conscious choice in these moments where things feel really out of control? And how can we come to a place of knowing what would be within our control and acting from that place? So I think one of the things that I want to offer in this moment is a couple of examples of what this can look like, um, and how I've seen people navigate this kind of idea that we can be at choice. Working with a client once who said, Juan, this is such a roller coaster. The question back would be, how do you want to ride the roller coaster? How do you want to ride the roller coaster? It really opened up a conversation about how they've been riding the roller coaster of this journey. Someone else was sharing that this feels so different, so unknown. How do explorers explore the unknown? Was the reflective question back. And then we started to talk about what would it be like to explore the unknown from that place of curiosity, from that place of what can I learn, from that place of what is this teaching me? So it's almost like, is there a way to find a gift in the challenge? Is what emerged in that. I think the example, Aaron, that you shared that really resonated, we heard it, don't act like a job seeker. Well, what do we get to act like instead? And can we spend some space really envisioning what that would be and imagining what those behaviors would be and what would that posture even look like? Those are some of the things that we do in the type of coaching that I practice. And so to wrap up, and before we switch gears to Ellen, I'll offer a couple of questions that many of us are looking for work right now, or many of us maybe intend to. Maybe others are looking forward to what's next with where you'll be studying. And you've got some big decisions that you want to make there. Maybe some of us are here more for curiosity and to see what this opens up for us. So I'm trying to offer a couple questions that will land with everyone that's in the space today. In the type of coaching that I practice, there'd be a question like, what qualities in yourself are you noticing that are becoming stronger? How do you know yourself? What qualities are you noticing in yourself that are becoming stronger? What feels like it moves beyond safety, ease? What feels like edge to you? Where does comfort go to discomfort? I was working with someone who really expected friends to show up for them on their job search and put some initial messages out and was really underwhelmed with the amount of support that came back. It suddenly became a barrier to ask for help. We explored that edge. What would it look like to ask for help in a new way? What are you excited about becoming? What's here for you now? Are some of the questions that I get to hold space and ask in the type of coaching that I do. And so again, you're going to hear a really different flavor of ice cream with different coaches that you work with. A lot of the tactical, hopefully you're going to get a little bit more of that. And as you navigate what it's like in your particular stance, I'd love to see if there's any opportunity to share some of that space and field questions that come up today. Ellen, off to you.
Juan, thank you so much. Um, I would love to echo what you did, and please offer it up for Juan. That was really beautiful. And I would highly recommend writing down those questions, because one of the things that I've found as a coach and even as a person living in this world is that the individual work that you do is the most important work. And when you can get clear on things like your own values and what you might be holding yourself back from, and why you might be afraid of making changes or why you feel stuck, that's the key that unlocks the ability to find that great next space. So thank you so much, Juan. Oh, and Justin asks if you can put some of those questions in the chat, which would be amazing. So, hi everyone. I'm Ellen Whitlock Baker, she, her. I'm a 2009 MPA alum. I also worked for many years for both the Evans School and for the University of Washington Alumni Association. So, I'm thrilled to see all you alums on here. My background is in higher education and advancement and alumni engagement. I got incredibly burned out and left that world full time on my own. I'm a coach, I'm a speaker, and I have a podcast called Hard at Work, where we explore all of the ways that work doesn't work for most of us and how we can start to change and make change both in ourselves and in the systems, which has been like the most incredible journey and not what I expected to be spending this year doing, but I've really enjoyed it. Similar to Juan, I'm an executive coach. I've been trained to, and what I like to do is ask questions and listen. Those are the biggest things that I can do as a coach. I'm also, I'm not one to give advice, although it's very hard for me not to sometimes because we've all lived our lives, and most of the folks I work with are in the nonprofit and public sector. And so I've definitely lived many of the lives that you all are into. But what I wanted to talk about today is, it's sort of a kitschy seven, red flags to avoid in to look for in your interview process. But I'm doing this from a place of I want to make sure that when you choose your next job, and I know it's a really hard time, and some of us just need to be employed and have benefits, and I totally get that. So this is not to discourage you from taking a job that is offered to you if that is what needs to happen. But if you're able to discern a little bit, there are some really big red flags, particularly in our sector, that are indicative of a really toxic environment. And I wanted to share a couple of thoughts from a writer, Jodi Ann Burey. I don't know if anyone has read her book. It just came out. It's called Authentic, The Myth of Bringing Your Whole Self to Work. She's also an adjunct professor in the COM Lead program at UW. She has a master's of public health, so similar but different. And her TED Talk, which is basically the same name, that came out in 2020, is a must watch for everyone. So I'm sharing this quote from Jodi Ann, which is in her book, Mission Makes Us More Than Workers. Our careers advance causes that bring meaning to our lives and the world, and suffering, cure disease, save lives, save the planet, spread awareness, protect rights, increase representation. We serve communities who bear the brunt of injustice, often our own. This isn't just a job. It's how we satisfied the most profound aspect of authenticity, our purpose. And I say that because we have to be even more careful when we choose where we're going to work next, because our hearts are big. When you're going into this line of work, when you're getting a Master of Public Administration, you're not about the money, you're not about the notoriety. You're working from this place that Jodi Ann describes so well. And what I want to show you is that she did a LinkedIn poll as part of the research for her book, where she asked people of color to compare the level of racial microaggressions experienced within mission-driven institutions to other sectors. Sorry, I'm missing an S there. And of the 312 people that responded, 45% said the microaggressions were much worse in mission-driven institutions, 41% said somewhat worse, and then 11% somewhat better, and 3% much better. So I say that, and I want to show this to show that we're just going into, particularly if you're a person of color or if you're part of a community that a nonprofit or a public organization serves, there's some real trauma potentially happening there. And so that's why I want to talk about these red flags. Um, and I'll just end with this quote from her. I mean, end this part with this quote from Jodi Ann, which is mission driven institutions are not exempt from upholding routine practices of structural violence. These institutions will bully, abuse, underpay, and mistreat us despite their progressive aims, and sometimes because of them. So, not to scare you out of going into the nonprofit or public sector, but make sure you're going in with your eyes wide open. And so, here are some things that I think show that you might be tiptoeing into an environment that could be rough. Um, any job description that says something like must thrive in a fast paced, high impact, self led environment, use all of the synonyms you want for that. That's usually a red flag. That means often you have way too much on your plate and you're not going to get a lot of direction. So when you see a job description like this and you've made it to the interview, it's a great time to really ask some specific questions about workload and how you might say no to projects, how the organization says no when things are beyond their capacity. How do they know what their capacity is? These are okay questions to ask. And I think they're really good things to go into interviews knowing. Word salad job descriptions with too many bullet points. I wish I had some of my old job descriptions because they were full of words and didn't actually say anything. And the amount of things that are often expected of particularly nonprofit and public sector folks are ridiculous. When you read a job description and you're like, who could do any of this in one day? That's a red flag. So definitely watch those job descriptions carefully. And if you're worried about it, it's a great question to ask in the interview. If you are interviewing somewhere that does not have a continuous feedback system, so if you ask about, hey, how am I given feedback in this organization? And they say, oh, everyone goes through an annual review. Nope, that's not it. So look for places that are doing more continuous review, that aren't giving everybody the same stock review formula. Everybody's an individual and everybody is approaching work differently. And so if you're finding a place where they're sort of treating everybody as the same and you're all kind of getting the same like 5 point scale at the end of the year, that usually shows some rigidity and leadership that is also not necessarily going to help you be the best person that you can be at your job. And again, these are not black or white, yes or no things. These are just things that I've observed over the years that might show that either it might be a red flag and you don't want to continue, or you just really want to make sure you get your questions answered around these. So the second to last is if you do an interview and you're not allowed or you're not invited to speak with who would be your direct supervisor, who would be your team members, and who would be your peers, that's usually something that gives me a little bit of a that's weird, because especially if you're going to be leading people and you're not allowed to speak to those people, that means that they don't have much of a say in the process, and that's usually not a great sign. So everybody has different reasons for things. It's just something to look for. And then finally, I had an interview process once where I had 2 days and I had 20 different interviews. It was ridiculous. So anything where they're using your time in excess is just not great. And it shows that they may potentially be an organization that's going to use your time in excess when you are employed by them. If they have their stuff together, they should be able to get an interview done with you in half a day or even less. Um, Again, there are those groups that you want to make sure you can talk to. So you may need to have 3 or 4 or 5 conversations, but going on the ridiculous all day long interviews, which are often, especially for executive directors, there's sort of this code for checking your stamina and whether or not you can like make it in these super long days. Those are not necessary. Oh, and the weed whacker is outside. So sorry if you can't hear me, but that's the end of what I'm saying. I would love to answer any questions you are, and I'm just cautioning you to take care of yourselves.
Hey, thank you for all those wise words and sharing with us. We're now going to move into the question section. So, yeah, I love these rounds of applause. Thank you celebrating these incredible experts. So we had a couple people submit these questions. So I'm going to ask two questions of you, and then we'll move into audience Q&A. So at that point, people can either raise their hands or put them in the chat, and we will answer them. So the first question we had submitted was, what tips do you have for applicants who are trying a career transition? So either from the public to the private, private to the public. That is something that I went through myself. I worked with a career coach, Aaron, actually, in particular, made a career transition working from a decade long in a very specific area to transitioning to this public space. So I know it can be really challenging. So, who would like to share some advice in this area?
Most of my, well, not most, I would say probably half of my clients, I work with a lot of people. I work with hundreds and hundreds of people. And probably half of them are career pivoters. I would call them pivoters because we're talking like Justin, right? Justin was a career changer, but it was like a, I don't know, Justin, what would you say? Like a 30% change, 40% change,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
maybe 90% change, right? I think of career pivoting as like you're not making a 180-degree change. You're making, a modification. Why is that important? Because the people who are making a 180-degree change, and I'm talking 180, I'm talking like I had a client who was a very well-renowned Alzheimer's researcher with the University of Illinois, had been doing that for 20 years. He decided he wanted to become a commercial airline pilot, did so, and is happier than ever. That's a 180-degree change, right? Like that's a 180-degree change. I had another client who was a fashion designer. She worked in corporate fashion design. She had her own fashion boutique houses. She decided to make a 180-degree change and become a psychiatric nurse. These are big changes, right? Where you're really having to like kind of start over, right? Start from scratch. Based on the work that I do and based on the clients that I've worked with, this is a very small percent of people. Why? Because your tolerance for change has to be very, very big. Your tolerance for risk has to be very big, right? Most people that I work with, at least, they're in this more career pivot, right? Where they there's things that they know they love to do. There's things they know they hate to do. And there's sectors they might be interested in. There's other sectors they're really not interested in, but they don't quite know how to like put it all together. And so, what I think about with career pivoting is you're not starting over. Because who the hell wants to start over? No one. You're not starting over. You're iterating. You're evolving. You're going through an iterative process and evolution. And often, and what I do suggest in this job market is rather than do what those two people I just talked about have done, because that takes a lot longer and it is harder to make that big of a change, focus on either an industry pivot or a functional pivot. Maybe not both. If it was an employee job market, absolutely do both. But in this type of market, it's going to be tough to do both. I'm just going to be super honest. So, what do I mean by an industry or a function pivot? Like, either stay in the same industry but change functional roles, or stay in the same functional role but move industries. And what I'm seeing is that can translate really well. And I think I didn't really answer your question directly, but the last thing I'll just say, and then Ellen and Juan, you have to translate it for them. You have to do the work of heavy lifting to translate who you are, what you know you can do, what you have done that is hyper relevant to the markets that you're wanting to play in, to the functions you're wanting to play in. And when you do that heavy lifting, and you can do that with a career coach, that's what, career coaches are great at helping translation, then you become pretty marketable and you can become pretty successful. I'll stop there.
And y'all are getting such a good continuum of, which is a word I learned in my nonprofit management class at the Evans School from Steve Smith, if anybody ever had him. But you're getting a really good continuum from all three of us because we, we do all approach this very differently. Steve Smith, love. What I would say is everything Erin said, yes. And there's a piece of you that needs to believe that you can do it. And what I find, because not most, many of my clients are career pivoters, and most of them are mid career pivoters. So in our 40s and 50s, maybe been a fundraiser for your whole, grown up life, are miserable and just are like, what the hell would I do other than this? I've been doing this for 20 years. You absolutely can do it using all of those practical tips that Erin gave. And there's a piece of yourself that you need to, and I'm wondering if Juan has some good questions you might ask yourself, but there's a piece of yourself that you have to convince that this change is okay and that you can do it. And there's fear around this. And our brain is conditioned to protect us from things that are scary by making us not do them. So there's a lot of different ways to get around that. But one of the things that I talk about a lot with my clients is teeny tiny steps and teeny tiny experiments. There's a great book called Working Identity by Hermania Ibarra that I will throw in the chat. But she talks about little experiments. So you don't have to decide tomorrow that you're going to go from a fundraiser to an X, Y, or Z and then just go after it. It's those little, like, what might I try, and have little experiments to figure out if anything is resonating. And that will guide you to what's next. But Juan, I bet you have some good thoughts on that too.
Well, I'll offer this. Are we moving towards something? Are we running from something? Are we drawn towards? Are we looking for? The word play came up earlier. Like, that's an energy. Where do you want to play? That's an energy. So getting really clear on our why, getting really clear with our why, getting really clear with ourselves on what's the purpose for the movements that we want to make. And so I kind of go back to what I offered earlier. Can we really be a conscious choice? A lot of that is untangling. From what I've seen, it's untangling a lot of um, the hopes, if you will, the hopes, the aspirations, the why. What I'll offer here is, in coaching, what I've learned and what I offer to clients is, can we consider emotions as data? Well, if we look at something, and becoming an airline pilot makes you actually light up, and you kind of notice, like, wow, there's something here resonant. There's energy I can harness. That's energy I can move, to what Ellen was sharing a moment ago. Like, parts of us might need some convincing that it's worth it, that it's possible, that we can do it. We might be able to have that then relationship with our emotions to really use them as guideposts and tell us what we're moving towards, and how does that feel? What are we maybe wanting to leave, and what does that feel like? And then really know the why. Working with someone the other day, and out of the coaching session, what came up was, well, what does your partner say? The partner hadn't been talked to. There wasn't much conversation there. There was a lot of stuff happening at home, actually, that maybe a job search and interest in movement and mobility in some ways maybe was connected to maybe something that someone was trying to leave from closer to home. And there was opportunity then to have a really open conversation about, like, I'm really struggling at work. This is really hard. I want to do something really different. Suddenly becoming an electrician made a lot more sense to the coach in me. I kind of understood at that moment a little bit more of what was going on. So um, that's how I know to contribute here.
Incredible insight. Okay, moving on to our next question, which is, so on this call, we have alumni, current students, and prospective students. What are some of the benefits of holding an MPA, EMPA, a master's, in this job market?
And maybe it's not necessarily about the degree, but it's about the community. You like A huge part of the value of your Evans School degree is that you're a member of this community, and it unlocks all the doors. And so, especially when you are a student, so current students and prospective students, you have like a hall pass to everyone. So go find the CEO of whatever company because you're a student and they might be an Evans alum too, or even just a UW alum, or just someone who's cool. Like, go find them, go have a conversation with them, take them out for coffee. I did that my second year at Evans, and it was amazing who said yes to me. And then everyone that I talked to introduced me to five other people. And so it's this like concentric circle that just kept getting bigger. So I think it's a really wonderful community and it's a really supportive community and it's all over the world. So definitely lead with that when you can find someone who's an Evans alum. They're much more likely to chat with you.
I first started working with an alum in like a university college space, and it was her skill set. It was the skill set that I saw that I thought, look how practical and deployable. How did this person learn that? Became why I ultimately looked into the program in the first place. And upon finishing, I've worked mostly in higher education. Now I'm in really like an ed tech startup space with Guild, and it's just such a deployable skill set that I can, I've got really strong legs that carry me in many different types of spaces. So just want to, I think there's really practical is another word that comes to mind to describe what I gained at Evans. Yeah.
I'll just share really quickly. Yeah, I echo what Ellen and Juan both said that the network is everything, if not the most valuable thing, probably, down the road. Although I think about, what you're all learning at Evans or what you did learn at Evans, and I think you all learned how to lead. Maybe you already knew how to lead. But I mean, that's what I took away from my EMPA. I was leading in a job in an organization, and I got to experience, with a cohort, bigger issues of public sector and nonprofit sector and social impact. And so I think that leadership, like sometimes what I find is that we forget how to lead ourselves because we're so focused on leading in the organization or leading in the company or leading the teams, but we remember like career development, career change, job search. You're the CEO, you're the leader, you're the one making this happen. And so I think if you can kind of take some of those, skills learned in a master's program and apply it to your job search, apply it to your career change, apply it to your career up leveling or progression, whatever you're trying to do, I think you'll be better suited for it.
Incredible. And I do want to just echo the community element as the alumni and community engagement manager. Our alumni community is truly, truly the best thing about the Evans School, in my opinion. I may be biased, but I've met with hundreds of alumni in my time here, and I've never met an alumni who has said they are not willing to meet with students. So everyone wants to chat with students. They want to share their perspective and their story. And so all you got to do is reach out. We have a really, really lovely community. Okay, so moving into some of the audience questions, we already have some people submitting them. And just want to be mindful of time. If we don't get to everyone's question, I will send the follow-up questions to our career coaches and ask if we can get a couple points from them to share out with people in the follow-up emails. So one of the questions is, what do you suggest for applicants who consistently get to the final round interviews but just never stick the landing? I've had five finalist interviews for director roles, but none of them have been quite the right fit. How do you suggest job seekers screen for best fit for themselves?
Well, first, kudos to you for getting five final round interviews. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That means you're doing a lot really, really well because it's hard to get into final round interviews. You have a pattern of getting into final round. Good. Celebrate that win. That is a huge win. Landing the deal, right? This is about deal making. As a job seeker, you're a deal maker. Employers and employees that we're trying to come together to make deals. And these are important deals because this is about your life, your work, your family, your income, your impact. And it's really important for the employer because it's about their mission, it's about their impact, their ROI, right? So this is, I think about job searching like dating. It's like both parties are in the business of finding the best possible match in an ideal situation, right? And so, for the person, so you're getting all these final round interviews, amazing, and you're feeling like there's still something not quite fitting. Well, the first thing I would say is then maybe, even though it's painful not to get that offer after investing so much time, maybe wasn't the right offer for you, if you can really see that it wasn't the best fit. The other thing I think about is, do you have a blueprint, right? If you're thinking about a change or thinking about a stretch role or thinking about a new industry or thinking about anything, even if you're not looking for a change, you just want a job that really is going to tap into your best potential. You need a blueprint to guide that way. What specifically are the conditions of the job function and the environment to ensure you are motivated, you're impactful, and that you're successful? We know through brain science that positive emotion is developed when we are motivated at work, like when we're motivated in the work context, when we're motivated at work, when we're doing things, when we're behaving in ways that intrinsically motivate us. We also know that positive emotion is developed when we're doing things that we are really good at, things that are our deep strengths. These are our deep areas of potential. And so if you have a clear blueprint of like, what are those things? What do I need to be doing in a job function to feel satisfied, to feel motivated, and to be impactful in the way you want to be? And then what, in terms of an environment, do I need to ensure I'm motivated and to ensure I'm supported and to ensure I'm successful? Get pen to paper and get super specific. So that way, then, at every touch point in an interview loop or in a search process, you're constantly using this blueprint to evaluate and to determine what else do I need to be investigating or what else do I need to be learning from them, from the company, from the interviewer, from whomever, to determine, is this going to be a good fit for me? And then, listen, you still might get an offer or get another interview and decide to keep pursuing it, but at least then your eyes are wide open. So that way, then you can sort of use really good management strategy for yourself to enter a new job with your eyes wide open, knowing what might be a trade-off for you and how you're going to sort of interact with that. In terms of closing the deal, one thing I talk about with my clients is remember that interview, like deal making, right? This is the construct I'm putting out there. And when you're deal making in business in the world, when you're starting to make a deal, and then when you're nurturing a deal, and then when you're closing a deal, it's different tactics. There's a different psychology. There's different moves to make. And so deal closing, what's one tactic I would recommend? If you really want this damn job, then go over and beyond. And one thing that a lot of my clients will do, they will build out a 30, 60, 90-day plan. They'll bring it to the final interview. They'll give it to the hiring manager, and then they walk the hiring manager through it. This won't take you more than 45 minutes to create. It's a low lift, but it can set you apart. Another thing some of my clients will do is they'll build out an OKR sheet and a mission for the role based on everything they've learned in the job search thus far. So that way they can show the hiring manager, this is exactly how I'm going to deliver value from the get-go. And this is what it's going to look like, and this is how I'm going to evaluate it. It's just giving them a little bit more of a look at your process and enabling you to kind of stand out from the crowd a bit. So those are just two simple sort of tactics around what's different about sort of deal closing versus deal opening and then nurturing deal or interviewing.
And I would just add really quickly, ask. You can absolutely ask, hey, what could I have done better or differently in order to blah, blah, blah. They may respond to you, they may not. They may be willing to do a follow-up call with you or not. But if you can get feedback directly from them, that might be really, really helpful.
I'll stay on theme, but I'll be really short. And what practices support you in staying resilient? What keeps you going? What keeps you moving? Yeah.
So I have written down people's questions. I will make sure those get answered and shared out with the group. So if we don't get to your question, no, you will get an answer. But I do think that there is one that someone submitted that is very relevant to many of our people in our community under this current administration. The central challenge right now is the industries of global public health, international development, infrastructure. The areas our alumni often go into have been decimated by a very intentional federal policy. There are some specific networks or tangible resource, sorry, what are the specific and networks or tangible resources you would encourage people to use to help translate public skills to other opportunities?
Yeah, this is real. This is so real and depressing and so real. Um, so I guess I would say, so okay, I want to be really specific because I know that's what you're asking for and tangible. Well, listen, skills, when you can start to, I hope I answer your question. I'm kind of thinking out loud, right? But if you can start to take context out of skills, if you can start to like be a neutral bystander to your career and really just sort of analyze without context, what are the skills? What are the impacts? What are the strengths without the context? What are the ways in which I move at work that adds value? You know, like for myself, maybe you can tell, but by the way that I talk, but I'm a pretty like I'm a pretty fast-paced person. Some people might call me fiery. I would call me sort of, exuberant or enthusiastic. That's a way I move in the workplace. That has a real impact in the types of skills that I'm going to be really good at, in the types of things that I'm going to be able to do and add value, and of course, in the types of environments that I really thrive best in. And so if I can isolate those without context to then start to position myself around those skills, around those impacts, I still talk about my context, but I don't emphasize the context as much. Then I think that's the way really to start pivoting into new industries, if that's really which I think that's the question is how to really translate skills in public sector to more private or other sectors. The skills are all the same. And in some ways, public, nonprofit, these are some of the hardest jobs out there. I was in nonprofit for 20 plus years and public, and these are the hardest jobs I ever had. And so that's the story. It's not necessarily the context of the organization you worked for or the mission. It's the like, how did you deliver value? I'll stop there. I hope that's specific and helpful.
Do you want to go on?
No, I'm appreciating the question. I don't know that I have that I would say within my area of expertise, other than I'm noticing the challenge of this question. Maybe it's a good opportunity to follow up, and there could be a part two at some point. Yeah, but go for it, please.
No, I think that's a great idea actually, because it's a really hard time right now. Um, and that sort of desperation that you can feel when trying to find a job when like every avenue that you know to go down is now broken or a place where you maybe don't want to work anymore. Um, it's really hard. So I think definitely just acknowledging that. One thing I would say, and Colleen, I know you're in Idaho, but as much as you can get out in the world, get out in the world. That's something that helps me and lots of my clients go to a chamber of commerce meeting and like see who you meet. Find your local nonprofit um, coffee talk or whatever and talk to them. There's a lot of capacity building going on through community foundations. Like maybe there's a volunteer opportunity to talk to some grantees about something you're an expert in. It just I think the more that you can kind of get out and do things in the community, the more opportunities that you might see come your way that aren't what you know to look for. Does that make sense? Because we certainly do not know all the jobs that are out there, right? And so there's probably things that you haven't thought of that you might love. So that would be my recommendation too. Oh, nice. Parks and Rec. Yeah, live it. Leslie Nope.
I'll just say one more thing too, because I think like there's two things we're sort of talking about, right? There's the like, how do I figure out what I want to do outside of global health or global dev or public sector? And then there's this question of, and then when I do know, how do I translate? When it comes to that translation piece, remember it's about language. This is how we translate. We translate through lexicon, through the different lexicons that different industries work in. I know with like my nonprofit folks, they use a very specific language and mental models of how they talk about their work. It's wildly different than my corporate folks. They're talking about the same stuff. At the end of the day, they're talking about the same stuff. Now, they're not. I don't mean to like, of course they're not, because there's really different contexts. But again, when we can take the context out, then we're getting down to like the deliverables people are doing, the value people are creating. So just remember that too. It's like once you do know where that thing is, then you can start to change your language a little bit.
All right. Well, this has been a wonderful hour. Thank you so much to both and all of our career coaches who have shared, Juan, Ellen, Aaron. Thank you all. I think we all learned something on this call. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I know we're 1 minute over time. I put the emails of our career coaches in the chat. I will plan to send a follow-up email with additional questions that were answered, a recording of this, and some additional information on how to get support. But remember, our Evans School, our Evans community is our best resource. So please, please, please use it. I'm always here as a resource. I will put my email in the chat. I'm always happy to be a connector to anyone who needs support. I hope everyone has a lovely day, and thank you all again for joining us. This was amazing.